Welcome back. Today we are talking with Regina Phelps. And Regina, just as we got to the end of our first segment, we are now going to talk about the future of work.
Yes, we are. The impacts of everything related to the pandemic that we just talked about have a huge impact on the future of work. And that's really what I want to tease apart. And I'm just going to dig right in here. So there's kind of 8 possible outcomes of the future of work here. So obviously, the first thing is this issue of hybrid and remote work. It's increasingly mainstream. And now there's some like people thinking now with the economy getting tighter and employers saying like, oh, like maybe you need to be back in the office more if that's going to change. But my sense is that's not going to change. And I think we need to plan for that. So what I really am asking all of my clients to do is that you had better be looking at what your continuity plan is for all these remote workers you have. Like what is like, say if there is a power outage that affects a large region that you might be in, or you've got people all over the place. I mean, do you physically know where they are? Are you kind of monitoring what might be going on in those areas through your security operations center, utilizing some sort of app about issues related to power outages or other kinds of events? Because it's not just that you have offices, you've got people distributed all over. So, and that could be, you could have a critical work performance issue that's being done at a particular location in the country because that's where 5 or 6 people live and work. And now that's not getting done. So I think we have to broaden our vision about what it means to have people in a variety of places. And you have to think more broadly about power outages, issues with the internet, connectivity related concerns, all related to that. And then also, of course, always having that undercurrent of cybersecurity with all of these remote folks, with all of that customer and company information that is going to be, again, zooming into somebody's house. Utilizing VPN, making sure that you've got the most appropriate ways to secure people actually connecting to your environment is really important. So this is something that most of my clients have not thought much about. They just think like, oh, okay, we're working remotely. And yeah, there's some cybersecurity issues we need to think about. But what about their ability to produce work on a daily basis based on wherever they are in the world? And if you are doing critical work for me, Alex, and you're in Canada and all of a sudden something happens up there, do I have the ability now to shift that work to somebody else who might be in an area that's not affected? And I know where that person is and I know what's going on. So it's a little bit different than it used to be back in the old days.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to think about what that means. And then also the fact that, again, hopefully that we're doing more things collaboratively. We're utilizing more platforms more effectively, like MS Teams and Zoom and other platforms, so that we actually get things done more effectively. I'm actually talking almost all of my clients out of doing any exercises face-to-face, because in reality, if there's a crisis, they're not going to spin up a team and go into a room and be all breathing on each other for a lot of reasons. A lot of people aren't even in the same area anymore. So this idea of remote exercises, remote command centers, remote management of events is something that is real, happens every day. So if you're doing exercises, you should be planning on all of those being virtual and continuing to refine those processes so they're being done correctly. Less middle management. I've already started to see this, and you're seeing this now in layoffs with the number of layoffs going on around the world. There's less people in the middle. Why do you think those people are at risk, Alex, those people in the middle?
Well, there's all kinds of reasons, but now, because with people being remote, the old way is those people were, or different way of saying, it's probably a better way of saying this, but they were watching you.
Right.
They could see you. Now that a VP or somebody higher can do that exact same thing.
Right. And I think there's a better sense now from a perspective of people that are working at home in a hybrid format or in a fully remote format, is that you are being measured on your deliverables. So, it's pretty clear if you're doing your job or not, right? So it
Yeah.
required companies to be clear about what the deliverables were, and it required you to actually have to meet them. So then why do you need those people in the middle whose job is to really watch over you when it's really clear what your job is and you're just basically doing it? So there has been a big drop, and I have seen in my clients in middle management. And you're certainly beginning to see those in the individuals that are probably getting rift right now in the reduction in workforce, right?
Mhm.
So what we need to think about is, how does that impact continuity, right? If you're seeing a shift in organizational structures, was that person critical somehow in your business continuity process in that department or group? So don't be blind as a resiliency professional. You need to, if there's really big shifts going on in your org structure, you need to think about how that really ultimately impacts you, because they might have been key in some way in your business processes. Maybe they were providing oversight for continuity plans in particular departments, and now they're gone. So who's doing that, and how's that working out? And are you picking up somebody else? Or, be smart, because things are shifting. And what we're seeing now with more and more layoffs, at least here in the United States, is that this is becoming a concern and people need to think about it. Are you seeing layoffs in Canada?
Yes. Yeah. Some of the ones that you are probably seeing in the US, I don't know, Disney or somebody, laying off 10,000 people or whatever their number is, some of those people will be up here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with a lot of the technology companies that are doing the same thing. Well, they're up here as well. So
Right.
staff up here, offices up here are being affected by it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that I think we need to be very aware of that. And I've talked with you extensively about the issue about making sure you're selling the value of your work, because otherwise continuity planners or the resiliency programs, even though you can say how important we are, we're a line item on a spreadsheet. And if things get tight, we might be one of those departments that starts losing people. People need to think about how they're selling value all the time. So please, I talk about that a lot, but I want to remind our listeners that it's really important that you have a really good value speech to spread what you do. Turnover is going to likely continue. And of course, with turnover, and we're seeing that with layoffs, but this turnover issue really makes us then really have to rely even more on continuity plans for, looking at our standard operating procedures. Do we have things well documented? As people are either being laid off, seeking other employment, going through retirement, you're losing a lot of brains, a lot of knowledge. Is that captured in a SOP within a business continuity plan for a particular group or department? So that's another thing that we need to really be thinking about as we're shifting in this current future of work, which I think is really, destabilizing.
Can you take 30 seconds and just define what you meant by SOP, what that is for
Sure, the
anybody out there
standard
that may not
operating
know?
procedures. So ideally, what I would expect to see when I look at some continuity plan, especially for really time-sensitive, mission-critical business processes, is there is captured in that business continuity plan a clear process about how certain things get done. So, for example, if you're looking at banking, they might be how you close the book of business every night, or how you essentially are balancing the checkbook, or how you might be doing certain business processes, so that when somebody comes in, it almost becomes like a job aid or a training tool, because there's actually really good documentation about what are some of the key things that person did. And many of my clients, when I look at their business continuity plans, their SOPs are often either not there at all, or they're puny. I mean, they just don't say much. And so an SOP is another one of those things. And when you're talking about contributing value to what we do for a living, people retiring, people getting laid off. Oh gosh, we know we've captured what they do. It's captured in a continuity plan, because that's what you expect them to do when we have an impact to our organization. So that's what when I'm looking at an SOP, that's what I'm looking for. And I don't see them well written very often, mainly in my banking clients that I see it. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I didn't want to assume that everybody out there knew what an
Yeah.
SOP
No,
was.
good. Thanks for that. I always appreciate clarity. A shorter week. God, wouldn't that be great if we could actually, now you're starting to see that there's a lot of churn or interest in a shorter week. There's been some nations that have been experimenting with a 4-day week, I should say. And the question would be, how would that impact continuity if you're in an organization that is contemplating that? So this is kind of a different version. I mean, just because you're only technically having office hours Monday through Thursday, but that means any kind of office hours, right? They could be in the office, hybrid, remote, whatever. But still, there is business continuity that's 7/24, 7 days a week, right? So if indeed you actually do go to a shorter work week, which would be great, wouldn't it? To only have to be signed up for 4 days a week. Oh my God. Then how could that impact continuity? And what would you do? Would that impact what people would be expecting from you? Would it impact your overall continuity plans? What about your ability to reach people? You're going to have a lot more people if they have 3 days off going places, right? Instead of staying at home because, they have an option. They have 3 days now instead of just 2. So all of that could actually begin to impact what our continuity plans would look like or how a recovery might occur. So that's something to be thinking about if your company is moving in that direction. And if they are, of course, I'm jealous because I think that sounds like a great way to live, right?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It also increases the risk because it's already about 72% of the hours during a week are non-business hours. So if you go to 4 business days, that percentage goes up, which means even more time now that if something happens, it's going to happen when people aren't around.
Right.
As you pointed out.
Right. And so I think there's a lot of issues related to that. So if you are expecting people to be available to be able to support things remotely, if there's a crisis or come in physically, I think you just need to be really aware that don't make assumptions that people are going to be at home.
Yeah.
Especially if they have the opportunity to go other places. And I don't know about you, but certainly here in the United States, we're seeing the greatest number of airplane flights daily, exceeding the highest we ever had prior to the pandemic. People are going places. And so that could easily happen in relationship to a crisis that occurs and folks are not available for you. So don't make assumptions that people are going to be able to help you. The freelance and the gig economy, there's a lot more people that are freelancing. It was 57 million as of January of this year. There might be even more with layoffs now, but that's 36% of the workforce in the United States, people that are freelancing. So people that are actually doing it at their leisure, right? Versus actually being required by the employer. So this is actually becoming an issue because some companies are hiring freelancers that are doing critical business processes. Yeah, why not, right? So what does that mean? What's the backup for them? It used to be that we always have a primary and a secondary person, but if you have a bunch of freelancers, they don't owe you anything, right? You don't.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't owe you anything. So if you are utilizing freelancers in this sort of gig-based economy, what does that mean for your organization? And what does that mean for your continuity plans? It could have a big impact. Or if you're doing crisis management, who's going to be actually, just because you might have some critical people that are actually freelancers that sit on a crisis management team. Anything is possible these days. So think about that when you're thinking about people coming to help you.
And you may have a bunch of these people come and help you. They get a whole bunch of stuff done. You feel great. Everybody's a team. And then all of a sudden their contract ends.
Right.
Now they're all gone and you're almost back to square one. All that knowledge went out the door.
That is really an important observation. And I think I would say if you are utilizing people on contract related work, yes, that's really important. Everything leaves with them unless you've thought about that in advance. It's a really great point, Alex. Number 6 is really interesting. And certainly with ChatGPT now being out since November, I hope everybody's playing with that. And I'll talk about that just in a moment. But the rise in robotics, machine learning, large language models, and all the AI, are you thinking about what that means in your plans? So robotics is a good example. Many warehouses, many manual labor related manufacturing jobs are now moving towards being fully robotic. That was planned way before the pandemic, but when the pandemic started, there was a real escalation, especially in warehousing and in distribution centers. That's also appearing, though, in manufacturing. So instead of having one person assembling things, there are machines that are assembling it. Now, there are people watching the machines and managing the machines, but there are a lot less of them than all those people that used to assemble the screws and the boxes and all of that stuff. So how is the use of robotics or artificial intelligence really fitting into your plans? Have you thought about what this means? If you have a large supply chain related issue or a lot of manufacturing, if you have robotics that die and you have a lot of that happens where there's a problem, is there a workaround? Is there any kind of solution that you can do? Or do you just sit with your hands on your lap until those things can be fixed? And think about a cyber attack that could impact them. So what does that mean? Because I'll tell you, we are moving towards this robotic age without much thought about what it means and what it means to recovery.
Well, as somebody, I was talking with somebody just a little while ago at a restaurant. I think it was the bartender or someone that worked there, and they got talking about this AI and robotics, and the way she responded almost reflects back to what you were saying in our first segment about the individual impacts, saying, if they take over, I could lose my job here because now they could set up something at the bar that can mix drinks without me.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There are machines already in Japan that are robotic bartenders.
Yeah.
They're not over pouring. They're not under pouring. They're doing exactly as they are instructed to do.
Yeah.
There is, yes, there is a huge shift. And so I used to, naively think, well, okay, so a robot's not going to replace me because I'm not putting screws in machines, or I'm not making cappuccinos at a bar or something like that. But now you look at the issue of ChatGPT. Have you been playing with ChatGPT at all?
No, I haven't. Not yet.
So this is the homework assignment. And I'm sorry I didn't think about this, because I could have brought up my account and we could have asked ChatGPT a few questions. I've been playing with ChatGPT, and this is now the arcane version, which is still ChatGPT 1. ChatGPT 4 is out, only for those people that have special accounts, but you can ask it amazingly almost anything. You could ask it I've asked it very specific questions related to our field. It's still kind of clumsy in it, but it's learning. So ChatGPT, all you have to do is Google ChatGPT, go there, and just open an account. What's very funny is that when you do that, you have to enter in your email address and pick a password, but then it makes you answer a bunch of questions to make sure that you're not a robot, which I think is pretty hysterical because you're talking to one, right? Oh my God. So why I think this is interesting is that ChatGPT is I find the large language models that are out there now just fascinating and incredibly frightening, because they have consumed all of the knowledge of the internet. So just think about that, right? All of the knowledge of the internet. And they can do all kinds of immediate processing. So when you go to ChatGPT, you get your account, start first of all by asking really simple questions like, I'm going to Mexico this week, and give it a look. And what should I be doing when I'm there? It will give you a full list of everything you should possibly doing. Or what should I be thinking about if I'm going to San Diego or something like that? So start with simple things. You can start to ask it very increasingly specific issues. You can ask it to do a bunch of issues, research related to health. You can have it start doing research related to all kinds of things. And it will start answering your questions within a second or two. You can have it write poetry. You can have it write poetry in Shakespearean language. You can have it do it in languages other than English. It's mind-boggling. So how is that going to affect us? You could say that you could probably write a standard continuity plan, not right now probably, but pretty soon. with artificial intelligence. You could probably write a communications plan, crisis management plan for certain things. You could write a playbook, as it's often called, for certain, or run books for things in technology. Those things are around the corner. And what I find fascinating is that we need to be, and many clients of mine are already starting to use the equivalent of ChatGPT in call centers. Because they're pretty efficient. So you're starting to see them in all kinds of places. So the question will be, when that starts to arrive, how is that going to impact our plans? What does that mean? I mean, I could see that. I mean, there's a style in the writing, and this is what I've noticed with ChatGPT. I'll use the word, like, it's not really a word, but kind of the unhumanness of it. You know, there's a cadence, and you can actually get apps to determine whether something was written by AI or not. And part of it is the cadence of the sentences, the kind of the rise and fall of the use of the verbs. It's colorless though, right? It's not like somebody, like a human who injects energy, if you will, currently. But I think it's important to really think about, play with, understand what it actually means to us in our field. Because we've just started to scratch the surface. And you could see that there are many jobs that will be augmented by them, by the use of AI. And you could also argue there'll be some that could be replaced.
Yes.
And I'm talking about college educated, even things like reading x-rays, which is there's a big issue right now in medicine about this, and reading pathology slides. They actually, there's actually some studies where they're actually having a pathologist read a slide. Let's say you've had surgery and you're going to be concerned about a cancer diagnosis. And so the pathologist does the report, but they're also using AI to see how the AI would read the report. And they have found that in some cases, both in x-rays and also in slides, that the AI will actually see something that the human did not. So then the question would be, would you still have the human read the slide and then you'd have the AI do kind of another check, which is another interesting idea. But I think this is the kind of thing that we are going to be thinking about, and it's going to impact us societally in ways that you and I, frankly, Alex, can't imagine.
Yeah.
But it also has the ability to do all kinds of things. And when this starts to be mass produced and is out in the universe, you can sort of imagine the power of it, the good that it can do. And also, if you think social media is bad societally, think about ChatGPT or other big, large language models and how the impact of what that could do to society is pretty mind-blowing.
We only have 4 minutes left, believe it or not.
I'm not surprised. I'll talk about two things. Let's see. I'm talking about two more things and then we'll stop. I want to talk about supply chain disruptions. We certainly saw a lot of those in 2020 and the future of work, but this is going to be a big issue. China's now out of zero COVID, but they're still having issues in the country. So we all need to be doubling down on supply chain issues. If you're not doing that already, you need to be on it. And then lastly, I would say your organization, it's not in our field of making these decisions, but things about reshoring or offshoring to different locations. Many people moved all their work to Asia. We saw what a problem it was to have that so far away. Now there are companies that are bringing work back into North America, specifically places like Canada and Mexico in particular. And there actually are Chinese companies that are now building manufacturing facilities in Mexico because they can actually get things across the border rapidly and not have to deal with freight, supply chain related issues. So if you're in an organization where supply chains are a concern, the question is, are people raising this question? This affects our continuity plans. It affects what we do for a living. Are people looking at reshoring either back in country, in whatever country you live in, or to a nearby country that may be less expensive, but puts it in closer proximity than China, which is where almost all manufacturing seems to have fled to. So I think this is a big issue for us to consider when we're looking at our continuity plans. These 8 things are really being driven by the pandemic, and everything is escalated because of that. So on that note, I'm going to be quiet.
It's like a whole new world.
It is a whole new world.
You know, the pandemic didn't just make change like when it came to health and our personal behaviors, but it has had far-reaching impact into other things I don't think a lot of people would have thought.
Right. Right.
You know, like the offshoring and some of the other bits, the AI piece, especially because now authors I know are complaining too, saying that, well, now someone can just write a book by just telling, putting in some criteria or whatever, and there you go, they got a book.
Right. It's, yeah, there's so much that has changed, driven by what happened really out of the pandemic. A lot of things might have been moving in that direction, but escalated rapidly. And so I think we as continuity professionals need to really think about this, because our work is going to be very different going forward.
In a way, I don't think we are continuity professionals anymore. I don't think that's really a title that applies to us. I think we've become something else, and I don't think we have a title for it yet. A proper.
Yeah, because I think I agree with you. Resiliency isn't, I mean, that's the buzzword of today, but I don't think that's it either.
Yeah, I don't know what it'll be, but it seems, our industry is definitely changing quite fast, because we have to reflect changes that are going on in the world, in our communities, in our office spaces, everything. We have to be on top of all of that. And as they're changing so fast, we're changing. We're not simply looking at in case there's a flood. Anymore. It's way beyond that now.
Oh yeah. And I think that's why I always like to talk about these issues, because I think we as a profession need to keep pushing the envelope, and we need to think way beyond our toes.
Yeah. And I think on that note, we've come to the end of the show. Regina, thank you so much. Once again, for anyone who has listened to Regina and I over the last 35 episodes, we didn't get through all the slides again, did we?
Go figure, right?
Yeah,
we had so many things to talk about, right?
Yeah.
We'll talk about polycrisis next month. That's there's always something.
That'll be next month's topic. Regina, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Alex, the same as well. I hope you stay well, stay sane, and I look forward to visiting with you again next month.
Yep. Stay safe in California, and stay dry too.
Thank you. Number 14 atmospheric river comes tomorrow.
Yeah, unbelievable. And only a couple of months ago, we were talking about a drought.
Right.
Thanks, Regina, and everyone listening and watching. Stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.